Right, so you want to dive into LVMH? Huh. See if it's is now the right time to buy in.
Yeah.
Interesting question. Especially with, like, the global economy, everything going on right now. We're talking about brands that, like, scream luxury, where a lot of people are having to cut back, and be more careful with their money. I mean, is this a good opportunity, or is this kind of a risky gamble? What do you think?
Well, I think what's really interesting here is how luxury brands kind of have to navigate all this economic uncertainty.
Right.
Because their whole model, their whole kind of reason for being relies on, exceeding expectations, giving you this glimpse into a lifestyle that, frankly, most people only dream of.
Right.
So when, those dreams have to start factoring in things like inflation and, global slowdowns, it gets really, really interesting for the luxury market.
Yeah. No, it really does. It's like that feeling when, like, your favorite, high-end bakery suddenly raises their prices. You're like, wait a minute, is this still worth it? And that's kind of what we're seeing play out right now in Asia, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, China in particular has been kind of the driving force behind a lot of the luxury market's growth for years now.
Right.
But even giants stumble. Right. I mean, take Richemont, for example.
Okay.
The group behind Cartier, Montblanc, they saw sales in China plummet by 27% last quarter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's not just a dip. That's a significant drop.
27%, that's like a huge red flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not just a China thing then. It sounds like this is maybe kind of a symptom of a bigger, like, economic chill going around the globe.
I think it's definitely connected, yeah. You're seeing global growth forecasts being revised downwards,
Yeah.
And consumers, even those with a lot of wealth, they're becoming more hesitant to spend lavishly when the outlook is so uncertain.
Right.
And it's just another layer of complexity for luxury brands that are already kind of grappling with the ever-changing tastes of, younger generations.
Oh, that's a good point. Because it's not just about the heritage and the craftsmanship anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's this whole other thing.
Yeah.
It's about digital trends and experiences and, imagine a luxury brand completely missing the mark on, like, a viral TikTok challenge or something.
Oh, yeah.
That would be disastrous.
Huge disaster. It's such a delicate dance for these brands to maintain that legacy that they have while still staying relevant and, appealing to a generation that might value, like, digital fashion or these unique experiences over a traditional luxury handbag.
It really makes you wonder how LVMH is navigating this whole, like, landmine of luxury. I mean, they have everything, right? From these huge fashion powerhouses to, like, high-end spirits. How do you even manage that?
Well, LVMH's portfolio is incredibly diverse.
Yeah.
Which I think has its own advantages and disadvantages, right? I mean, it's almost like they're managing this collection of prized racehorses, each with their own temperament and their own potential.
That's a great analogy. And one of their, like, more recent acquisitions, Tiffany & Co., I mean, that's been making headlines, right? That seemed like such a perfect match when it was first announced. But I feel like there's been these whispers of trouble in paradise. What's the story there? What's the real story?
Yeah. What's a really fascinating case study, actually.
Oh, yeah?
On the surface, it was like a match made in, boardroom heaven.
Right.
You got LVMH. They're known for this masterful brand building.
Right.
And then they take on, like, an American icon, Tiffany.
Right.
But it turns out that merging two really strong identities, even in the name of luxury, can be tricky.
It's like trying to combine a, like, perfectly aged Bordeaux with a classic New York cheesecake.
Yeah.
Sometimes the flavors just clash. So what went wrong? Did Tiffany just, like, lose its sparkle under LVMH?
I think it's less about losing sparkle and more about just differing approaches. You see, LVMH, they're known for being fast-paced, centralized.
I know.
Whereas Tiffany had this more traditional, even kind of slow and steady company culture. And there were whispers, right, of employee departures, concerns about the new creative direction.
Right.
Even rumors that Tiffany was losing that kind of unique identity.
So did LVMH maybe just, like, underestimate the power of Tiffany's, like, heritage?
Yeah.
And the brand loyalty there? I mean, people aren't just buying a Tiffany blue box. They're buying into this whole, like, history.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I think it's almost too soon to say whether or not it was, like, a success or a failure.
Okay.
Because remember, LVMH is playing the long game.
Right.
And they've shown they can revitalize brands that have that heritage.
Right.
I mean, look what they did with Dior. They took a brand that, frankly, a lot of people thought was kind of, fading away.
Yeah.
And they turned it into this global phenomenon again.
Right.
And they're doing very similar things with Tiffany, right?
Right.
I mean, they're spending a ton of money on marketing.
Right.
Bringing in these huge names like Beyonce and Jay-Z as ambassadors.
Wow.
And really clearly trying to target a younger generation who maybe, are discovering the brand for the first time.
Right, right. It's almost like they're betting on nostalgia and new beginnings all at the same time.
Yeah.
But speaking of bets, and one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting when I was looking at LVMH was their price to earnings ratio.
Okay.
It seems a lot lower than I would expect given how, dominant they are. Can you maybe explain that, for those of us who don't have MBAs?
Yeah. So a company's price to earnings ratio, or PE ratio,
Right.
that's basically their stock price divided by its earnings per share.
Okay.
And it's a way to get a sense of how much investors are willing to pay for every dollar of profit a company makes.
Okay.
So LVMH right now is sitting at a PE ratio of around 20.8,
Okay.
which is significantly lower than their historical average, which has been around 27.3.
Okay, so lower means that the stock is potentially undervalued then. I mean, that seems kind of counterintuitive with everything that we've been talking about their brand power and their acquisitions.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Especially when we start to consider what's happening in China, because while those global trends are important, what happens in China, it can really dictate the future of the luxury market.
So you're talking about those rumors of China's economic engine, like revving back up?
Yeah.
Could that be the boost that LVMH needs to kind of send their stock price, skyrocketing?
It could be a significant factor, yeah. I mean, China has been making some very deliberate policy shifts lately.
Right.
And they're all aimed at stimulating economic growth.
Okay.
And historically, when China's economy starts to pick back up, luxury spending often follows very closely behind.
So are we saying here that LVMH, with its lower than expected PE ratio, might be kind of uniquely positioned to benefit from, China getting back into that luxury spending mood?
It's definitely a possibility. Think of it this way. As those consumers in China, regain their confidence.
Right. And their spending power increases, they're going to be looking for those brands that represent lasting value and prestige.
Right.
And that's where LVMH's portfolio, with all those legacy brands, with those really strategic acquisitions, that's where it really shines.
So it sounds like with LVMH, we're looking at kind of this intersection of risk and opportunity.
Yeah.
They're facing challenges like figuring out, that Tiffany integration. But at the same time, they seem really well positioned to really capitalize on any kind of economic upswing that might be coming.
Yeah.
So with all that in mind, I mean, what are some of the the core strength that LVMH has in its arsenal that it can rely on?
Well, besides potentially hitting the jackpot with a resurgence in China, what other advantages does LVMH have? It feels like they're walking a tightrope between global uncertainty and brand power.
Yeah, you're right. It is a delicate balance. But you have to remember, LVMH isn't just any company.
Right.
Their size and their diversification are really major advantages. I mean, they're not overly reliant on any single market or any single product category.
Right.
And that kind of resilience is crucial in the luxury market where, trends can change overnight.
Yeah, it's like they've got this safety net woven from, luxury handbags and fine spirits. But let's be honest, a big part of their appeal is those, powerhouse brand names.
Oh, yeah.
Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, Dior. I mean, these aren't just brands. These are practically synonymous with the word luxury at this point.
They really are.
Yes.
And that brand equity is invaluable.
Yeah.
It lets them command those premium prices even when economic conditions, might suggest otherwise.
Right.
People are willing to pay a premium for that heritage, for that craftsmanship, for that feeling of owning something, with that image.
It's true. There's just a certain allure to knowing that you're wearing or drinking something with a legacy. It's not like LVMH is just coasting on their reputation, though.
Yeah.
They've been making some interesting moves lately that deal with Moncler, for example. What was that about?
Yeah, so the Moncler partnership is a perfect example of LVMH's forward-thinking approach, right?
Sure.
By taking a 10% stake in Moncler, which is that, luxury outerwear brand, they're essentially betting on the continued growth of that sector, which has been a sector that has been quite resilient even during, economic downturns.
Well, they're not just following trends. It's like they're anticipating them, shaping them even.
Yeah.
It's like they're playing 4D chess while everyone else is struggling with checkers. But at the end of the day, it really all comes back to like the original question. Is LVMH a buy?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And like most things in the world of investing, there's no easy answer.
Right.
It really depends on your individual investment goals, your risk tolerance, your assessment of the global market. I mean, there are certainly challenges ahead, both for LVMH and for the luxury market as a whole. But you can't deny LVMH's strengths.
Right.
Their brand portfolio, their strategic vision, their ability to adapt, I mean, those are all very real.
So for you, our listener, it really boils down to this. Do you believe in the enduring power of luxury?
Yeah.
Do you think LVMH is positioned to kind of weather the storms and come out even stronger?
Mm-hmm.
As with all investing decisions, do your own research, consider your options carefully, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself, raising a glass of Hennessy to your own savvy investment in the future.
Here's to that.